What's up, guys and girls? So today I'm going to be talking on my first impressions on Big Bang Theory, the TV series. Now, this is actually a fairly old series now. It's in season 5 or 6. I don't know if it's still running, but it's nearing that age of middle age to ending. I mean, that still may not be the case. I mean, look at Two and a Half Men, look at The Simpsons, look at Family Guy. If you got a good thing going, it could possibly keep going. We don't know. But this is a series that has blown up over the last few years, along with let me think. In terms of TV networks, the only other big one I could think of right now is Glee, and back in the day, House. But House has ended a long time ago, and we'll see where it goes. But this is quite a large series, and it has quite a huge following. And so I had very little knowledge on the series, and I'm going to tell you what I knew and how I think about the series after I finally had time to watch it. Now let it be known that I didn't choose to start this whole thing. I actually was I'm always averse to television shows because, first off, I do like TV. I feel like it's almost like everything in life that can become addictive, but in certain ways is for the majority bad for you. I'm like most people. Like, if you get exposed to enough of it, you're gonna like it so much that you're gonna get addicted, and it's gonna hurt you, but you gotta keep watching. So that's why I'm averse to a lot of these things. And so for TV, that was sort of the same sort of thing. Plus, on the other side, we don't have a TV in our dorm. Like, we could get one, we could hook it up and get cable, but yeah, that's just not gonna work. So I already have that, a little bit of a problem with video games, and so here I am, winter term for college, which, like, if you've never been in college before, breaks in general are really long. They're like, winter break for us is almost 2 months straight, which is insane. And then summer breaks are just as long, if not, it's longer than the high school and middle school and elementary school students, which is even crazier. Then you got spring break and whatever. So I'm in winter break, and I'm just all I'm doing is taking a course, which it's not easy, but it's not hard, and I got extra free time, and it's just, what can you do? I'm reading these books, but every now and then you just get bored. I mean, I'm reading this book now, Rule Number One. It's a great book, but it gets boring sometimes. Anyhow, so I decided to pick it up. What the heck? I wanted to just try out the pilot. Why? Because the pilot is like the epitome of the series. It's also the episode that sort of makes or breaks a series and determines whether or not to continue on with the series from there based on its reception. Long story short, I've blabbered long enough. I watched it, and before I knew about this, I knew it was, I'd seen like a few small clips here and there on YouTube and so forth, and I knew the general premise. These guys were nerds. It was a comedy series, and so forth. And from what I'd seen before, I had always thought it was overdone. I mean, the intricacies of what these nerds said, it was just too unrealistic because they were saying such complex stuff. And it's true in a way. I mean, it really is true. But that's what I thought before I watched the series. I'm like, it's too much. They're trying too hard to make you laugh, and I realized, that was probably after like the 5th season. I don't know, but when I saw the pilot, I thought it was actually pretty decent. It was very general premise. Spoiler alert. Penny, who is a very good-looking girl, but typical pretty girl. She's working minimal wage. She moved in across the hall from these two nerds, Leonard and Sheldon, and their group of friends. And it's about like their relationship and how these nerds interact. Now, I hate calling them nerds, but for most of you guys, that's probably the quickest way to identify. Um, they know so much about like all these things, and I ended up watching about 9 more episodes. Currently, I'm on episode 9, I believe. It's quite amazing. Some parts are a little drawn out, but a lot of parts just make me laugh. I identify quite a lot with it, which is probably what makes this series for me. Surprisingly enough, a lot of the episodes are really short for a TV series, but I guess that's just how it is. On top of that, again, some of the stereotypes, especially with the Indian group, and a lot of stuff are more drawn out than necessary to the point of being slightly unrealistic. How do I know all this? Because this is my 4th year in college. I've experienced this. I mean, let it be known that this is like this is normal to me. Like all of freshman year, I lived in a dormitory. I lived in a dormitory that was all male, and half to 80% of the dormitory, they epitomized this. They were all in this group. They played poker a lot. I lost a lot of money in poker. Poker, Super Smash Brothers. They all had their specific interests. You know, World of Warcraft, RuneScape, and so forth. But you know, it was very similar to this in a way, and you know, it wasn't all like that. It wasn't like that sophomore and junior year for me. It was kind of like that senior year now, with certain groups that I sometimes interact with. But to think of that as like it's all very jarring, because you know, now they're adults, they've graduated college. Again, a lot of it's unrealistic. This guy graduating college or attending college at age 11, it's just too unrealistic, especially how he portrays himself. And the biggest thing is the breadth of their knowledge of all these geeky things. I think they know the breadth and depth of every field of geekdom, from Star Wars to Marvel to comics and so forth, etc. It's just too insane. Halo and so forth. And from a realistic perspective, having experienced all of that from Halo to etc., I find like most people tend to specialize in a select few stuff, like D&D is a big one, which stands for Dungeons and Dragons. It's crazy the amount of nerd terminology. I mean, senior year, I met this group, and they have all these natural abbreviations, and they say them so casually. They're like D&D, like I'm supposed to know what it means, and then it's like it's Dungeons and Dragons. But you get the point. I mean, it gets pretty insane. But usually their breadth isn't that insane. Don't get me wrong though, most of the time in these groups, they can go on and on about a lot of different things. Their breadth is like, but they don't know, like, they know a certain extent of Dragon Ball Z, but not to like, they don't know everything about every single field, and that's the distinguishing difference in this TV series. Like, they know everything about like Star Wars to Halo, and every episode is like a new thing. Paintball. Don't get me wrong. Like a lot of these things, a lot of the people I've interacted with in college do, but yeah, it's interesting. I think the biggest thing is their knowledge and breadth it's unrealistic, but at the same time, you know, it's so eerie. Don't get me wrong though, it's not exactly the same, and I don't think the actors themselves were like this, but they embody it fairly well, and it's crazy because a lot of them, you know, if you ask them about a lot of things, they have a generalized knowledge on it, but they're not into everything. And it wasn't. I don't want you guys to get it wrong. I wasn't completely immersed in this, and it wasn't all for me. And no, they didn't have all these adventures, and every moment was like funny. That's another big difference. So I couldn't identify completely, but I still love the series so far. and some of it's a little bit drawn out at points. The whole Penny thing, how Leonard sort of just, he always does like this underhanded sort of stuff to be with Penny. It's very strange. From what I heard, there's going to be a relationship with Penny and Leonard. So it's I can't say if it's realistic in that sense, but I've complained too much about this. I can go on and on about it, but let's just put that aside for a moment. Great series overall. I love it. I'm really excited. I wish it was like that in real life, but usually it's more so like hours worth of serious talk and they're seriously into it. Like that's another thing that's on point. They had this one scene where Penny walks in with three of her girls after a night of dancing, and she says, "Hey guys, we're tired of dancing. We all want to come in and have sex." And all four of the guys were playing Halo, and they were so into this Halo game they didn't even notice. That's spot on. My roommate, when he and his friends are playing whatever they're playing, Counter-Strike, you can't even get through to them unless it's really important. They don't even notice anything that's going on. It's that insane. So it's really crazy. Some of the similarities they got spot on, and I think a lot of it, whoever wrote this script, they had to have been a geek at some point, and that's something to be proud of, because there's no way someone who has no idea about this universe and so forth understands it. And that's the beauty of a state university that I go to. There's so many different avenues. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't just submerged in this completely, and it wasn't as glamorous as what's depicted on the show Big Bang Theory. They weren't necessarily like geniuses, but they're decent enough and adept enough at their specific majors, physics and so forth. Whereas Sheldon and Leonard, well, Sheldon specifically is like a ridiculous genius, but again, his breadth and depth of knowledge on everything from research on fish to teeth to gum to sewing, it's just unrealistic. Usually people sort of specialize, but enough of complaining. I really like the series. I wish it was more like that in real life, honestly, where like every 2 seconds something they say is just funny, and their amount of just their interaction with Penny, it sometimes happens in real life, but honestly I think more so most of them would behave more geeky and more shy. They wouldn't be able to interact so often or be so outspoken as Leonard, who from the bat was always being very nice to Penny, and inviting this girl out on dates and so forth. But then again, he did some sort of underhanded thing to get her out on a date. But I don't know, some of you guys may have never watched Big Bang Theory, so what am I talking about? That's all I gotta say, really. Really. And I guess what else? It's a great series, and let me know what you guys think. And honestly, I really think that if I had that sort of life in real life, it'd be very interesting. But the biggest thing is, like, I don't think I can't see it happening in real life, because they're constantly doing all this stuff. They're going to restaurants, spending all this money on all these different types of foods from different ethnicities. Then they go off to one day they're paintballing, the next day they're playing Halo. They have like an entire nerd schedule every day where they're constantly doing something tremendously new in a new faction of nerddom. And they have an entire schedule set on this sort of stuff, like Halo night, a Lord of the Rings night. It's just it's insane. Like, that doesn't happen most of the time. From what I've seen, it's usually like something like concentrated, like poker, like that's all they do, or Super Smash Brothers, or Counter-Strike, or specific online games, or World of Warcraft. They always specialize. But that's all I gotta say, honestly. that's not all I gotta say, honestly, because I keep going on. I keep saying that, and I keep talking. What else? It would be awesome if I could have been an actor in this. I felt I could have portrayed, the Asian role very well, but again, that at the same time, do you really want to portray your Asian American race as a nerd? I mean, wouldn't that just further lower the opinion of the Asian Americans in film and cinema that we've been constantly trying to, surpass? And I would have a great time just acting in that in general. It'd just be great. But who knows? Anyhow, long story short, so far so good. A few bumps in the road, but therein ends episode 9 of Big Bang Theory. Honestly, the best thing about the series is how they sort of depict nerds in a sort of glorified way, which is amazing. It's like a culture difference. And another big thing is that there's actually quite a bit of hooking up already going on in the series, which is quite different from the actual culture, or at least it proposes something pretty cool, because it's saying, you know what, these nerds can still have all their adventures and they can still hook up. And the thing about that, by the way, I'm probably going to put an age restriction on this video because of the content. But yeah, it's already been the 9th episode, and in only 9 episodes, let's see here, Leonard's been kissed by Penny. What else? The Kunal, the Indian guy has hooked up with that girl at the party, and then the other white dude who's not Sheldon or Leonard has hooked up. So it's pretty darn crazy, and it's very, very funny because he lives with his mom, and yeah, I guess I don't know if it's a good or bad thing that this sort of stuff is happening, but yeah, it's shedding a new light on, I guess you could say, nerd culture. I hate to call it that because I briefly watched the Comic-Con interview video, and one of the exec producers said that he didn't like it being called nerd culture because he just said he was making a TV show based on people he liked, which is fair enough, but I think it is nerd culture in a certain way. And so I guess it's pretty cool. I wish that was like what it is in real life, but not really. They sort of tend to stay with themselves, and most of them are like flocks of dudes with 0 girls, or if there is a girl, it's like 1 or 2 girls, and the girl is usually just like the guys, and usually very nerdy. But there's nothing wrong with that in a sense, man. But yeah, I was gonna say, man, that's kind of sad, that kind of sucks, but at the same time, what can you even say? I mean, it is what it is, and I very much like the series. I guess it can help in a certain way. It can shed light on viewers, and these guys might think, you know what, I might give these nerds a chance, because there are girl viewers, and they're like, you know what, this series is shedding a new light on nerd culture. Those nerds I was ignoring in class, I might just give them a chance now. Granted, in real life, these guys are usually a lot creepier, weirder, stalker, that's not a word, more stalkerish, strange, peculiar, not always, but many times, and distorted. Man, it's not, usually it's not that bad, but a lot of times they can get like pretty darn nerdy. I mean, there are certain few groups that I keep referencing. One is a group in the freshman year of my college, and one is a group I met senior year, and both of them, particularly the one I just met, they're so into what they do, For instance, they're into D&D. They're so into it that like it's very hard to relate to them on a deep level unless you're really really into all that. So they have a very specific niche sort of crowd, and yeah, I can see why it'd be hard to relate for a girl, unless they're into that too, which is a rare occurrence. Like they're really into that, and it gets so complex. And by the way, if you don't know what D&D is, it's Dungeons and Dragons, which is sort of real live action role playing sort of game with a actual board, like an actual board game. Um, and it also involves imagination. That's as far as I know. I've been offered, but I don't really want to get into that. So that's as far as I got into it before I decided, nah, I'm gonna take a breather from this one. You guys have at it. Um, but yeah, I guess for me, I think that would just be an awesome life. Not just I mean, granted, they're geniuses, so they can do what they want and they enjoy it. Which for me, I wouldn't say it's the case. For me, it's an acquired sort of thing through a lot of hard work and grudgery, and I'd still be doing a lot of hard work and grudgery just to keep learning and staying on par. Which is one of the reasons I have decided not to really consider grad school. I don't think I would enjoy it, but on top of that, there's I mean, they just enjoy what they do, and I feel like in Big Bang Theory, their lifestyle is again, I've mentioned this before, but it's different from the typical lifestyle of this group because of the breadth of their interest. You know, one day they're doing Star Wars, one day they're dressed up as Marvel comics, the next they're playing Halo, the next they're dancing, the next they're creating weird experiments. And so the breadth of their adventures is just, it's unrealistic, but a lot more fun than just, one thing all the time. And finally, I would say their adventures is as far as Penny goes. I think their interactions with girls, it's funny because, you know, the Indian guy for a longest time, he couldn't even talk to a girl, and it's just very interesting how they just go along their escapades. The white guy who, forgive me, I forgot his name, but the guy who's not Leonard or Sheldon, he's actually very confident to all girls, but he turns them off by his nerdiness, his scrawniness, his over exuberance in like a specific thing, and his moreover his pervertedness. But it's entertaining, and I think that's something that inspires me, honestly. Them just actually being themselves to the fullest, embracing it and showing it to the world, and actually getting fairly decent reactions from Penny, for her to, for the most part, like, end up befriending them and being romantically interested. And I think it's a great sort of lesson, inspiration to the general public, that it's okay to do this. Because I mean, so many people out there, me included, sometimes we hide away part or even more of ourselves because we're ashamed of it, or we think that people won't like that, or they'll think it's wrong. And granted, in the real world, that may sometimes occur, which is why we do it. But I think this show is an inspiration in that way, because it's saying like, it's okay. It's not just impressing on the people who are nerdy and may be ashamed of it. It's impressing also on the people who may be the ones making fun of these nerdy people, to think differently. And it's quite an inspiration in that way. I didn't mean to get so philosophical with all this, but there you go. And I think for me, it's just inspiration, in that it's saying, you know what, Will, be yourself, be fully yourself, because these characteristics, your interests, like for instance, I really enjoy League of Legends, and I don't think that's something that you should be ashamed of or hide. And I still see a lot of people who do that, And I think it's this whole TV series in the 9 episodes I've seen. It's just like it's just telling you, be who you are. Just embrace it. Show it to the world. And if they don't like you, screw them. There's gonna be people who like you. You're still gonna have your core group of people, your core interests. Maybe not my core group of people. I need to work on making friends, but you know, at core, you still have yourself, and you know, for other people, their inner circle of friends. For me, you know, I kind of need to work on that and develop that. But just, you know, be yourself. And I think the biggest thing and the most pressing thing is just, yeah, you can meet attractive girls like this, and it's possible. And yeah, granted, it's technically Leonard and Penny are still just friends, and it is just a imaginary story. And granted, the other two guys, you know, their escapades were just one-time stands. Um, but still, I mean, that's what's wrong with that. Um, and we don't need to get so technical here, but I don't know. That's all I can get out of it. I think I've talked enough. As always, like, favorite, comment, and subscribe.